Hello, I'm Marianne Devaney. Tax-free savings accounts and registered retirement income funds both had significant changes in the 2015 federal budget. So what does it mean to investors? I'm here with Tfsa Bazran, high net worth planner, and Catherine Del Greco, vice president, both from TD Wealth. Good to have you both with me today. Let's start off with the Tfsa. Tfsa, what were the key points that spoke out to you?
Sure. So in the old Tfsa rules, the contribution limit was $5,500. In the new rules, they've almost doubled it to $10,000. So that means when the legislation does become effective in 2015, the contribution limit is shifted to $10,000, which is good news for investors and just provides more options. So there's a lot of different ways that you can use the Tfsa. In the past, the Tfsa, because it was only $5,500, it seemed to be immaterial to people. People didn't really consider it. But with this change to $10,000 annually, you can see that within 5 years, when you take into account the prior room with new room, the contribution limit over time will be close to $100,000, which is significant. And the Tfsa can be used in a number of different ways. It all depends on what your age is, what your income level is, and what your goals are.
So what about millennials versus seniors? Do you find one group using it more than others?
Sure. So typically with a Tfsa, it all depends on whether you have the income, whether you have the extra cash flow to invest. For a millennial, typically I would prefer that they would use Tfsas as opposed to RSPs, because for an RSP, they have to earn enough income to maximize the RSP room, which is close to $25,000. But typically, coming out of university, you're not earning enough income to maximize your RSP room. So you can put the money into the Tfsa. You don't have to earn any income. And the other great thing with the Tfsa is that it's completely liquid. So, for example, if you graduate from university, you put the $10,000 in a year, and then later on, when you're ready to buy a house, you can then take that money out, use it for your down payment, and then the next year you can put it right back in. So there is a way to do that with the RSP as well, but it's just more complicated, and it can only be used really for purchasing your house, whereas with a Tfsa, you could take it out, for example, to purchase a house and things like that. And then for seniors, where they don't have any income, again, they're not earning RSP room, and then if they've already converted to a riff, they can no longer contribute to their RSP, obviously. So the Tfsa provides another vehicle that they can shelter income. And the other big advantage for them with an RSP, with a Tfsa, is that over time, if they shift money from their RSP to their Tfsa, and when they pass away and it moves on to the next generation, the Tfsa goes tax-free, whereas the RSP, there's typically a big tax bill, which can be up to 50% of the balance.
So let me get back to that later. But Catherine, I was going to ask you, do you find that investors and maybe particularly seniors are using this tool effectively with the Tfsa?
I would say for the most part, my clients and the clients that we see interacting with wealth, yes, they are. It is, I think, my opinion, I echo what Tarzan said, but the Tfsa to me now is a game changer. This is now a significant tool for any investor to be using effectively, millennials or senior citizens. He highlighted many different options that are available to you. What I do worry about is I do see a lot of people acting a little bit too conservatively, maybe a little too many GICs. The fact that it's no longer indexing, I think if you've got the risk tolerance and the time horizon, why wouldn't you own a good dividend-paying stock? That dividend yield is going to actually act as an index inflation hedge for you. So I think that there's definitely more room to be done for investors to look at this account now as a serious tool in their overall structure.
And I thought it was interesting that even when we looked at, because it was a retroactive, I guess, to the beginning of this year, that people who already did their contribution this year now have a little bit extra room.
Yes, my phone has been ringing off the hook today.
Wow.
People have actually been asking, when can I put in more money? So until, of course, this is passed, we're not taking any action. But I really believe that I hope that Canadians understand the the significant impact the TFSA change in rules really means, and it really can be a fantastic. The liquidity of it, the flexibility, what you can use it for. If you're 30 years old and can contribute to this plan for 40, 50 years, these are going to be significant size accounts. $750,000 account is not outside of the realm of possibility, and being able to draw an income from that in your retirement years on a tax-free basis. So this can be very, very helpful for senior citizens at that age, senior citizens who are earning perhaps a corporate pension, as well as all the government benefits, now are going to be able to not increase their tax burden by taking this additional income out. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, it really sounds like a good progress. Now, Tarsom, let's come back to you for the registered retirement income fund rules. They were also changed. What's going on there?
Basically, the government has conceded that there was an issue with the old riff minimals. So when you do convert your RSP to a riff, there's a percentage that you have to take out each year. Those rules are over 20 years old, so people are living longer.
Time to change that.
Yeah, exactly. And people are living longer. And the other big factor is that fixed income isn't earning what it used to earn. So where people were used to earning 6 to 8%, for example, in fixed income, these days that's very difficult. So with the old minimums, what it was forcing people to do was they were actually depleting their RSP or their RIF. So for example, in the old rules, if you were 71, your minimum withdrawal was over 7%. In the new rules, that'll be just over 5%. So in the old world, if you weren't earning 7%, for example, you've actually depleted your RIF. And over time, as people live longer, there was a worry that when people reach their 80s and their 90s, for example, they won't have any money left in their RIF, and not because they wanted it that way, they were just forced into that situation. So the new rules just give you flexibility. You can decide to still draw down on your RIF more if you want. For example, if you have a lot in your RIF and you want to draw down on it so that you don't have a big tax bill at the end of the day, you still have that flexibility. This just doesn't force you to be in that position. And the other option that you could do, for example, is you can now take some of the money, take more out of the RIF than the minimum, and shift that, as long as it doesn't affect your marginal tax rate and your old age security clawback, for example. But you can shift that now to your TFSA because there is more room there, and you can still shelter that income. You can still draw down on it. But the difference, again, is that at the end of the day, you won't have a big tax bill.
Yeah. So do you find seniors are doing this, Catherine?
Certainly it was a big concern. Many seniors, I won't say the word resent, but I guess I just did. Yeah. The fact that they were being forced to take money out that they may or may not necessarily have needed, but certainly incurring this extra tax burden. And at this day and age, with modern medicine and people living longer, this was a real big concern. That's probably one of the biggest conversations I have with senior citizens, is the fear of them outliving their money. Yeah. So the fact that they've got more control back in their hands as to how much they take out, it allows us to do more effective tax planning. These previous minimums were based on a 7% rate of return and a 1% inflation rate. And those are just completely outdated. So I think it's just going to, again, allow the investors to be more in the driver's seat, control their RSP and RIF assets more directly correlated to their own personal needs, and not run the same degree of risk of outliving their capital. So I think it's very, very important and long overdue.
Yeah, for sure. And Tarsom, just last question to you. We alluded to it. If you do save a lot of money in your RIF, it's not necessarily a good thing. Is there a way around that?
Yeah, so what I'm referring to there is when you pass away, if there's two spouses on the first death, everything rolls over to the second spouse tax-free, so there's no issue there. But on the second death, what happens is that your RSPs or your RIF are deemed to be cashed in, and you're taxed on that income. So for example, if you have a premature death, you're a single person in your 70s, and your RIF balance is $500,000, for example, the tax bill there could be $250,000, which is significant. So, so that's why that if you do just rely on taking out the minimum, and you do have a big balance, then for example, if you take out 5% a year, but it grows 5%, then you haven't taken anything out. So that's why it's important to talk to your investment advisor, your accountant, and discuss how do I deplete my RSP in a tax efficient manner, so that I'm able to control my marginal tax rate, but at the same time deal with that bill at the tax bill at death. And one of the ways, as we discussed, is to use the TFSA.
All right, thanks to both of you. Good to have you with me today. Obviously, a lot to think about and a lot to pay attention to. I've been joined by Tfsa and Catherine Del Greco, both from TD Wealth. Thanks for watching.